Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. And Foil Armor, flatten your foils fast. Matt wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Misty Rainforest. Fred's got a Swamp for turn, and pays 1 for a Shadow Spear. I just play an island, and pay 1 blue for a Mindspring Merfolk. Max draws, playing a Forest, and passing. Turn 2 for Mathieu has him playing a Command Tower, and then paying 2 for Rampant Growth, going to find a basic as he passes. Fred plays out an Ancient Tomb, and then taps it, taking 2, to help cast Cemetery Tampering. This allows him to hide away a card, and he passes after he picks it. I've got an island for turn, and cast Soul Ring. I then play out Trinket Mage, and as it comes in, I get to go and find my own Shadow Spear, putting it to hand, and passing. Max has got a Swamp, and just passes after that. Metch's main phase has him casting a Malevolent Rumble, milling his top 4, but failing to find a land. He gets to keep the Lightning Greaves from them, and gets to make an Eldrazi Spawn token, but with nothing else, has to pass. Fred's upkeep has him milling to the Tempering, and he then draws for turn. He plays a Swamp, and then pays 2 for Lightning Greaves. I've got an island, and enough mana to cast Orvar. I then pass turn, leaving 1 blue up. Max has a Forest for turn, and casts Jugan Defends the Temple, making a Druid token that taps for green as it comes in, as he puts the first lore counter onto it. Mathieu casts his own Lightning Greaves, and it feels very much like a copycat game. He then gears them up onto the Eldrazi Spawn, and passes to Fred. Fred mills on his upkeep, and draws. He plays a Cabal Coffers for turn, and then passes after sadly finding out there are no creatures in anyone's graveyards. My main phase has an Archmage Emeritus coming in, and I then cast Enter the Enigma, and I target it. I get to make a token copy of the Archmage because of Orvar, and then draw a card from the Emeritus, and then draw another card from the spell itself. I then play an island, and cast Commander's Plate, and pass. Max has a Forest, and upticks his Saga in his main phase. He then taps 5 mana for the other Gitrog monster, and gets to play an additional land with a Forest, and passes. Mathieu draws and plays the Takenuma he just drew, which he'd rather not have done, as his land for turn. It does allow him to bring out Teval though, and once his commander's out, he gears it up with the Lightning Greaves. Going to combat, he swings Teval at me. This has Mathieu milling 3 on his attack, and brings back the Misty Rainforest tapped, and I then take the hit for 4. Mathieu also gets to make a Zombie Druid token from Teval seeing a card leave his graveyard. Fred mills on his upkeep, and draws for turn. He then taps the Ancient Tomb, losing 2, and a Swamp to help cast Animate Dead. The enchantment targets Shoulder the Whispering One, and brings her back. And Fred then gives her Shadow Spear and the Lightning Greaves. He goes to combat, but decides to keep her back. My upkeep has me sacrificing the Trinket Mage to Shoulder it, and I draw and play an island for turn. I then tap 4 mana for Master of the Waves, making 7 elementals as it comes in. I then pass to Max. Max sacrifices his Druid token on his upkeep thanks to Shouldered, and then one of his own lands thanks to the Gitrog trigger. He draws from the land hitting the graveyard, and then for turn. He then puts the final lore counter onto his Saga, and transforms it into Remnant of the Rising Star. Max then plays out Filth in his main phase, and goes to combat. He swings the Gitrog monster at Fred, who lets it through, and after that, Max passes. Metch's main phase has him playing a tapped Littjara Mirror Lake. He then sacrifices the Misty Rainforest, losing 1 to find a Forest. He realizes at this point he missed the Shoulder trigger, and sacrifices the Eldrazi Spawn token to it. Going to combat, Teval then goes at me, and Metcha mills 3. He brings back a Swamp, and makes another Zombie Druid token as a result. In his second main phase, 4 mana then gets him a Naga Fleshcrafter, and he has it come in as a copy of Shouldered, which, please note, clones do not target, so Lightning Greaves won't stop this. Fred's upkeep has him losing Shouldered to match Shouldered trigger, and he then mills his cards to the Tampering. He sadly has no creatures from his own Shouldered trigger to bring back sadly, and he then draws for turn. Fred then taps the Ancient Tomb to help cast Bitter Blossom, losing 2, and then loses more life by casting Reanimate. He brings back Erebos surprisingly, losing 4, justifying it because he can't lair it in the way that he wants to keep Shoulder around because of the other Shouldered trigger. Fred then passes turn. On my upkeep, I sacrifice an Elemental token, and I then go to combat. I swing all 6 of my remaining elements at Mathieu. He blocks 3 of them and takes the hit from the rest. My second main phase then has me casting Heuristic Study, and I pass to Max. Max immediately sacrifices Filth on his upkeep to Shouldered's trigger, and then a land to the Gitrog monster. He draws from it, and then for turn, but he hasn't drawn into any lands, which is very frustrating. He then pays 3 mana to cast a Mirage Mirror, and going to combat, he swings the Gitrog monster at Mathieu, who takes the hit. He passes after that. Matt's turn has him bringing back Sir Conrad with his Shouldered trigger, which makes him a Zombie Druid token from Teval. He goes to combat, and swings Teval at me, and the Shoulder clone goes at Max. Mathieu mills his 3, and gets to return Port of Karfeld to the field, and make another zombie token as a result. In his second main phase, we then see a Lyside Prowler coming in. This has him milling 8 cards, one of which is a creature, and this triggers Sir Conrad. Mathieu then plays a Lotus Field as his land for turn, which comes in tapped, and he sacrifices Takenuma and a basic as it enters. Fred mills on his upkeep, and then loses a life to the Bitter Blossom and makes a fairy token. He then plays out his own Takenuma for his land for turn, and we realize 2 of the cards he milled are creatures, which in turn triggers Sir Conrad. He then taps triple black for Ayara, who as she enters, drains each of his opponents for 1 and he gains 1. Fred then gives her the Greaves, and he taps her, sacrificing the newly made fairy token to draw a card. Fred then passes, and during his end step, I use Mindspring Merfolk's Exhaust ability, putting 2 into the X. This draws me 2 cards, and gives all of my merfolks a +1/+1 counter, and we then move to my turn. I lose another token on my upkeep, and draw. I play out Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx, as my land for turn, and then activate it, making 8 blue mana. 3 of that mana then goes into casting a Marrow Reejerey. Once it resolves, I then cast Thassa's Oracle, and get the Reejerey trigger to untap Nykthos, and I then resolve the Oracle trigger as it comes in. I look at my top 11, and put 1 on top and the rest onto the bottom in a random order. I then follow up by casting Spellseeker, and go and find, you guessed it, Whim of Volrath. I then cast it with Buyback, and target my Nykthos. This gives me 2 Archmage draw triggers, and a copy trigger from Orvar, and will in theory, generate me infinite mana and draw if it resolves, since I can keep doing it over and over again, and making new Nykthoses over and over again. Mathieu isn't keen on this though, using Fierce Guardianship to counter it. I sadly have no counters in hand to stop this, and it happens. I then activate my real Nykthos again, making more blue mana, and then paying to equip the Commander's Plate onto Orvar. I then cast a Seafloor Oracle, and go to combat. I swing Orvar at Mathieu, who takes the hit for 9, and I draw 1 card from the Seafloor Oracle trigger. I then pass to Max. Max has no choice but to sacrifice the Remnant of the Rising Star to the Shoulder trigger, and then a land for turn, drawing from it hitting the yard, and then again for drawing for turn. He is so far behind on lands at this point, he just decides to swing at Mathieu with Gitrog for 6, and thanks to Swamp Walk, Mathieu has to take it. Mathieu's upkeep has his Shoulder trigger bringing back the Craterhoof Behemoth, which he'd milled earlier, and he resolves the Teval trigger first to make a Zombie Druid token, before he then pumps the board by +10/+10. He also gets a Sir Conrad trigger from the Behemoth leaving the yard, and with that on the stack, Max activates Mirage Mirror to make it a copy of Sir Conrad as well. He can't get the same trigger, but this is for any of the subsequent ones at least. Mathieu then draws for turn, and he looks at life totals and toughness totals. He realizes that I'm done to Teval in the air because of my pre-existing commander damage, and he swings his commander and druid tokens that can attack at me, the Prowler and Behemoth at Fred, and Sir Conrad and Shouldered at Max. Mathieu waits to see if we have any responses, but outside of Max blocking some of it with the Mirage Mirror, we all get beaten into oblivion, and Mathieu wins through combat. Game review time. So this is a bit of a quick one at 41 minutes, and that was mostly because everyone seemed to be playing aggro-based decks, and by everyone, I mean the two players who were actually doing things, which were me and Mathieu. Unfortunately for Max, that Gitrog monster put him so far behind despite the fact that he was drawing 2 cards per turn, and Fred was really struggling with any other black source. He had a Cabal Coffers that didn't tap for any positive amounts of mana. Other than that, the best card in this game was easily Shouldered, as she helped lock down the board in terms of sacrificing opponents' creatures, but also in Mathieu's case, bringing back 2 key cards with Sir Conrad and the Craterhoof Behemoth. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.